You're freaking out in the dark.
Madam Mayor, we are ready for work session.
Okay, I'll call this work session to order. It's Monday, November 27th, 5:30. And we have a presentation tonight from Youth 360 by Andrew Scrivo. Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Sure.
Get started.
Roll call, Julie Kreitz. Here. Mike Calhoun. Sue McClure.
Here.
John Osinga.
Here.
Randy Wells.
Here.
Robert Barnwell.
Here.
And Kevin Finch is excused.
Okay, thank you. So we're having some issues with the YouTube visuals at this point, but we're trying to get it fixed. So if you can hear us, eventually this will all be on somewhere. So do you want to go, did you want to say anything, Madam City Manager, before we start?
No, I think it's just all in Andrew's court tonight.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
for Mr. Scrivos.
All right, well,
Go ahead.
thanks. You guys better sit. It's like Ron Burgundy. So, yeah, I'm Andrew Scrivo. I'm the program director of U360. I work for the Sewer Prevention Coalition. There's kind of three different names that you'll hear kicked around tonight. So the Sewer Prevention Coalition is who I work for. U360 is the program that I run. That's our implementation of the Icelandic prevention model here at Seward as a community. And then there's Planet Youth. And Planet Youth is a company in Iceland that we use for data collection, processing, support, and resources in implementing the Icelandic prevention model here in Seward. And a big part of the Icelandic prevention model is reacting to local timely data about our kids and using that to sort of engage and empower and mobilize the community members to act as a unit to change the environment so that hopefully it becomes a lower risk environment for our youth. So in a few minutes when you get a copy of my presentation, I'm going to go through our local data collection. So but before that, I'll give you a brief kind of overview of the Icelandic prevention model. So in the 1990s, Iceland had the highest rates of underage alcohol and drug use, underage alcohol and drunkenness in Europe, and some of the highest rates of illicit drug use as well. And they came together as a whole country, and they took like a community collaborative approach to basically changing the environment around the kids. And so, and they ended up going from the highest rates of drunk in the last 30 days, smoking daily, cannabis use, things like that, to the lowest in Europe over about an 18-year period. Now, the way they did that was they took a primary prevention approach to that. And the Sewer Prevention Coalition and all the work that we do is in sort of that through that lens of primary prevention. So right now I'm on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you go to the fourth slide, you'll see it sort of looks like a Venn diagram with 4 bubbles. Okay, these are the domains of primary prevention. To understand primary prevention, you just need to understand that we're trying to, put in supports, resources, and surround kids with protective factors in the 4 areas where they spend 90% of their time, which is with their family and their peer group, at their school, and during their free time, which all happens within that larger circle of the local community. Okay? The idea behind the Icelandic prevention model is we understand that behavior change and sort of those intervention things don't work. How many of you guys know an adult that does something in their life that they know they probably shouldn't? There you go. So, right? We all, people that smoke, know smoking is bad, right? Things like that. Or they eat too many cookies at Thanksgiving and say this last one's going to kill me. Things like that, right? We all do things behaviorally that we know we shouldn't. And so that model of teaching kids what they shouldn't do in a high-risk environment and asking them to defeat the odds doesn't work. So the goal of the Icelandic prevention model is to change the environment, to surround kids with protective factors and lower the risk, right? To take the responsibility off of our children to make that right decision in an environment that is producing wrong decisions, right? It's a high-risk environment. So if you go to the 5 guiding principles, like number 6 maybe. So the 5 guiding principles of the Icelandic prevention model are this. 1 is that primary prevention approach. And that is in response to the fact that risk is not randomly distributed in the population. It hides in the same corners, right, in the same areas, and unfortunately, still in 2023, we can look at a kid's demographic profile and look at things like how much education do their parents have, how much money do their parents make, things like that, and we can, to a startling accuracy, determine like social outcomes for that child, right? We're largely products of our environment. So we need to apply that primary prevention approach where we change the environment to change the outcomes, not ask the kid, not train the kid, not put their responsibility on the kid. So the second guiding principle of the model is that it's all about community action. This is a whole community movement. If we're going to change the environment in all four of those primary domains that we talked about a few minutes ago, we need everyone that we can possibly get to be joining in this effort. We need to embrace public schools as a natural hub of the community because that's where the kids are. The third thing, we need to engage and empower community members, and we do that using this high quality local data. So the Planet Youth Survey, which is the data I'm going to get into here in a minute, was given, we gave it to all of our 10th grade students. We had a 94% take rate among 10th graders at Seward High. So our data is highly representative of the population and gives you real insight into the experiences that 15, 16-year-old teens are having in Seward. And we got that, we gave the survey on the last day of January last year, and we had the results back by the first day of April. So it was like, in 6 to 8 week turnaround. And so the data is timely and it's local, which is more powerful for engaging people. It doesn't give them the opportunity, it doesn't give us the opportunity to turn our heads and say, well, this is peninsula-wide data and it's all skewed by those people over in Soldotna and McKiskey. And these aren't our kids, or those kids graduated 2 years ago. They were bad eggs, and now, right? It sort of holds us accountable a little bit too, so to say, this is the experience our kids are having. What are we going to do about it? I think there's some accountability. There's a lot of power in the engagement of people using that data. The fourth guiding principle is integrating people from side to side, everyone in the community, which is why I'm here tonight. I want to engage you guys as prominent members of the community in decision-making spaces and things like that. Understanding this data is to understand the experience and the realities of what our teens, what their lives are like, and then you just take that information and do with it as you will in your areas. However you support youth and families in Seward, whether it's as a council member or a business owner or a parent or a community member or the member of a congregation of a church, or if you're a part of any other organization that supports youth and families, do so intentionally, after understanding the realities of the experience here. And that leads us to number 5, which is matching the scope of the solution to the problem. We want to avoid having rooms full of adults that think they know the challenges our teens face or what would be helpful, and throwing time and money and resources at things that maybe aren't, right? And so matching the scope of the solution to the scope of the problem. We went and asked these kids the realities of their experience, and then I ended up having some follow-up discussions with the 10th graders after that to gain some more insights into some of this data that you're looking at. And it's allowed us to make really good informed decisions into bridging connections to things we already have in the community that are helpful. We see a need, how can we fill it? A lot of times we don't have the time or the resources to reinvent the wheel. Things already happen. Seward is a wonderful place to live. There's many, many strengths in our community. We have tons of organizations and people with great skills and lots of things that kids can tap into. And so a big part of my job as the director of U360 is using our time and resources, and what we're doing is enhancing access and removing barriers to things that we know are helpful. So I won't read you the whole 10 steps to the Icelandic prevention model. I think I'm on maybe page 7 or 8 now. There's 10 steps. It starts with having a really strong coalition. The Seward Prevention Coalition was founded in 2005 by 10 women, and it was mostly focused on underage alcohol abuse. And since then, we have grown. We have about 105 current members, representing all 12 sectors of the community, and we have 10, I think we have 9 or 10 full-time employees running programming and prevention work in the community to support youth and families aged birth to 18. So anyway, we have an extremely high-functioning, well-funded, and sustainable coalition, which is huge. Where we are in the process is, right now, like what I'm doing today, is sort of between step 5 and step 6. I'm enhancing community participation and engagement, right? And I'm dissemination of findings. I'm trying to download some of this information to you guys so that, when you're in your decision-making spaces in the various circles that you run, that you guys understand the realities of our teenage experience here. So method and data collection, I told you we got 94% on the 31st. I'll skip over that and move on to our first pieces of data here. So under substance, the first slide, this is kind of an overview slide. It shows a bottle in the middle, okay? So we've got, and I don't want to read you every number on every slide since you do have the copies, but I will note a couple things. The other thing that I won't do a whole lot is give comparative statistics. I'll give a few here and there, or if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to know where we rank, if I know, I'll certainly tell you. But I mean, ultimately, we want all of these numbers as low as we can get them when it comes to substance use. So, start in the corner here, we have 44% have tried alcohol at age 13 or younger. To give you a feel for that, that number at a national level is like 22. And then the reason from a public health standpoint that number is concerning is if 13 or younger is what we call early initiation. And we know from a public health standpoint, for every year we can postpone a young person's initiation into substance or alcohol use, it greatly decreases their likelihood of having any sort of dependency issue with that substance as an adult. We also know statistically, they use the word, it is statistically, I'm trying to think what that word is. They can't say it's 100% that it won't happen, but it's statistically almost impossible if we can get a kid the whole way to 21 before they use substances, that they will have dependency issues, is basically what the statistics say. We have 13% drunk in the last 30 days. Over on the bottom right, we have cannabis use. We have use in their lifetime 38 and use in 30 days 31. So this is just my overview slide. I have other slides for each different thing as we kind of move forward. But the other thing, the other trend that's like a little bit concerning on this is the low difference between the lifetime use and the 30-day use in cannabis for the teens. Again, these are 10th grade kids, they're 15 to 16-year-old kids. And seeing that sort of flatline trajectory where you're 38 and then just to 31, that's concerning. That's roughly like 84% of our kids that have tried marijuana are smoking on a regular basis, or they're using cannabis. All right, how about I'm going to repeat that on that one too. And the national Alaska average for 30-day, which is what we call current use cannabis use, Alaska average is 22. National average is about 20. So we go to the next slide here. We start into we have e-cigarettes. This would be like vaping, that sort of thing. So we have lifetime, 30 days, and daily. And remember, this is all self-reported 15 to 16-year-old kids. Say we have the alcohol here. Next slide. So we have 66% of those kids have had it in their lifetime, and that could have been the sip of grandma's wine at Thanksgiving dinner. The question is, have you had alcohol in your lifetime? 44% in the 12 months, and then we have current use 22%. So current use alcohol at the state level, 30 days is about 15%. Next slide, drunkenness. So just as important as early initiation, another big sign from a public health standpoint of like, predicting those basically those outcomes and dependency rates and things like that is not only is the kid using alcohol, but how. And so this drunkenness, we're talking, does the kid report having been drunk in their lifetime, binge drinking, having 5 or more drinks at a single time, are 13%. So that would be more than half of the kids that are drinking, that have drunk alcohol in the last 30 days, that number was 22. So 13%. So more than half of them were, the way they drank, they binge drank, right? The national average for that binge drink is 8.3%. So again, how they're drinking is dangerous. We got the next slide here. This is where they get their alcohol. Okay, most of them report for someone 21 or older who isn't in my family gives it to me. Okay. And you guys, I don't know if you guys usually do more of a discussion, but if you have anything you want to ask or say, you know.
If you'd be up for questions, sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you guys have a question, just raise your hand.
Just a quick one.
Already?
Yeah.
How many kids were in the study?
39.
And you and I know that teaching in this small town that there are positive and negative years in terms of quality, not quality, but.
Yep.
So was this group a fairly?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I can't. It's funny because I taught all these kids when they were in first grade.
I was going to say.
But it was quite a few years ago. Now they're in 10th. I can't speak quite to that, but this is our baseline data, and we're doing this survey every other
Okay.
year. So-
Every other year?
Every other year. So in the fall of 2024, around October, that's the other thing I should mention, the timing of the survey was the end of January. That's because we got hooked up with Planet Youth for the data collection late in September. And we didn't want to have skewed data based on holidays and all these things. So we ended up giving our first survey at the end of January. That will not be the trend moving forward. Go ahead.
Quick question. So when analyzing or accepting the data from the youth, at first I thought you said they were 13 or younger, but they're not. They're sophomores?
Oh, right.
The one question was if
The
you
one
had
question
drank
was
below
about
under 13.
initiation. It was
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So it was when, yeah.
And then my second question is as a person who not only participated but worked with drug and alcohol teens,
Yep.
Teens like to exaggerate, and so I'm quite sure that there's some I got drunk 50 times this week type of thing, right? So, well, I mean,
Yeah.
kids like to exaggerate whether it's on a piece of paper without their name on it or whatever. So is there even a minor amount of that taken into account for this?
Yeah, so sort of part of that data processing and analytics, this survey has been approved by the International Review Board of, I can't remember what it is in Europe, and it's given through the Alchemist software. It's an online, this is like all standardized testing protocols in place. Teachers were briefed on how it was done. You know, it's fully anonymous. I mean, the studies show that basically if it's fully anonymous and it's done in a standardized way, the kids are truthful on these things. These kids want to be heard. When you're asking kids about this stuff, if they know that it's not going to get back to them, they will tell the truth. I would also say, you know, we threw one set of results was.
I did read that you threw it out.
Was discarded, you know, and it wasn't me, it was the data processing team in Reykjavik, Iceland.
Do we know why?
I think it was probably incomplete. It was incomplete, I believe.
Okay.
You know, largely left blank. But it's a fair question, and it's an interesting one. I mean, there's lots of studies and science behind all this sorts of stuff, but I can tell you that, you know, studies show that if it's anonymous and it's done right, the kids are telling the truth. And the way that our statistics mirror national trends and averages in the state, I mean, I just don't think it's skewed. I think this is highly representative of our kids.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Let's see. So here's the cannabis slide here. Again, we have lifetime, and then on the previous oversight slide, we didn't have the middle number, which is that cannabis use in the last 12 months. So that's 34, and then we have cannabis at 31 in current use. So again, sort of that flatline trajectory is like basically if these kids have tried it, they're using it. You know, and I would probably attribute a lot of that to like a low perception of risk. I mean, in a legalized marijuana state, there's a low perception of risk. But so I think what we need to key in on, you know, from a public health standpoint for the betterment of our kids, is the same thing we talk about with alcohol. It's like, yes, adults can use it, but it is a big difference between a young person developing brain, right, and a person over the age of 21. Yeah,
One thing I did notice in there is that there was a percentage of, and I sped read through, so I apologize for
Yeah.
jumping ahead.
Yeah, no
But I
worries.
saw that there was a percentage of youth that stated they purchased not only cannabis but alcohol at a store, and I believe it was 8% or 6% was the number that I saw.
that sounds higher than I think. I don't believe it.
3%.
3%. I just remember seeing a percentage in there. And I remember, of course, being able to show my ID to the person at the Minute Market back in the day.
Yep.
And just hope that they wouldn't know what it was, right? I mean, I'm honest. And nowadays, you can't do that because they
Right.
scan your IDs. And I find that even more difficult to believe that any sophomore in high school has been able to walk into a legal dispensary in the state of Alaska
Yeah.
and purchase marijuana.
Yeah, especially with.
Because
all over
with the way the
world.
video camera system works, the way that ID scanning works, the way that all that works,
Yep.
that has to be a relative or somebody who's allowing that to happen, because
Yeah, no, absolutely.
nobody's gonna risk
The
a,
stakes are ridiculously
Yeah.
high. I mean, when they went through the legalization process, they went and front-loaded that all with.
Absolutely.
Here's all the 10 things that are gonna happen to you, because, yeah, no.
I think that slide is specific to alcohol too, though, which,
oh, I thought there was two. I read through it
There
really
are-
quick.
There are two.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's two.
okay.
No, for sure, and I don't, and obviously, like you said, I mean, it's highly protected that we have all those things in place, and that there's nobody in their right mind who works at one of these places, or certainly the people who own them. that are
Exactly.
Pressing upon them the gravity of that situation.
Exactly, so,
So, you keep in mind with a survey of 39 or so kids, and 3% is like one person. So, like you said, maybe it was a relative, I'm not sure.
And 3% of that sample size is actually, well, it could be zero,
Right.
right?
So, yeah.
it could have been rounded up. So,
So, next slide here, this is other things, before I gave you alcohol at age 13 or younger, this is early initiation for other. So we have smoked a cigarette, used cannabis, drunkenness, snuff, cigarettes daily. This is early initiation, 13 or younger. This next one is just a slide that's asking kids if they drink at least one day of the following things. Since Iceland has kind of, really brought their numbers, from like 44% underage drunkenness down to like less than 5, and they've kept them there for, I think like 12 or 13 years. They've since then been using this model, and they've, continued with this data collection in this model, but now they're dealing with different challenges, like the other things they were dealing with, which is things like energy drink and social media and sleep, right? Things like that, so we put this question in because we wanted to ask about energy drinks, in case that's the next thing that we feel like is really concerning for our kids. So into the family section, these are what we would call protective factors, right? A lot of these things are protective factors, right? If you have families that are staying home, spending time together, have open lines of communication, they're communicating with their kids often and openly, things like that, right? So, and interestingly enough, we have really high rates of perceived disapproval. So this overview slide, we have 94% of parents disapprove of cannabis use. Remember, this isn't we ask the parents.
Right.
Do you disapprove? This is we 10th grade. Yeah. Okay. So perceived disapproval rate 94, 100% on the drunkenness. 88% of our students say it's easy to receive caring and warmth from their parents, which is great, highly protective. And on the side, we have some sort of family time stats. We have 63% often or always spend time with parents on the weekends, 66 on the weekdays, and then 94% parental monitoring, meaning do you know where your kid is? Do you know who they're with? We know those two things are highly protected. And you couple that with, do you know the parents of your kids' friends? That is a hugely protective thing. Did you have someone?
No,
Okay.
just answered.
The next slide is two stats that I just gave you off the other one. So if you skip to the next one. This is another parental monitoring thing. Report that parental monitoring applies rather well or very well to them. Basically, do my parents have rules about who do they know who I'm with? We have 88% say yeah. Do they know where I am? 94 say yeah. Right? 91 say that my parents are caregivers, know my friends, and then we drop down to 75 and we say my parents are caregivers, know the parents of my friends. So one of the programs that we run with the coalition is called Bloom. That's our birth to 6 for families and little kids, age 0 to 6. And one of the things and Melanie Smith runs that program for the coalition. And she does things like tot time and coffee and walks at the library. And she does the infant learning program, or like parents as teachers. She does home visits to help people understand, milestones and things. And she throws quarterly baby showers for pregnant women and people and families that have kids under 11 months. So 4 times a year they get together. But one of the things she's really trying to do is she's trying to create a cohort for people in town, both for the benefit of the parents and the kids, right, who have children the same age, because we know it's highly protective. Right? It's highly protective for our kids, and then it's also highly protective for us as parents to have a support system and people that we can talk to and, get together and, things that people are bumping up against, the same things that we're bumping up against. After the holidays, starting in January, a big part of what I'm going to be doing is trying to facilitate parenting conversations among cohorts at all levels of school-age kids. So getting all the parents of kindergarten, 1st, 2nd graders in the room, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th kind of thing. And, one, I'm going to be disseminating some of these findings and talking about protective factors and things that they can do in the home, but really, a large part of what I think is really helpful for parents in Seward is just getting in a room with other parents of 15-year-olds that are saying, man, what are we going to do about, cell phones and social media and, sexting and, whatever. And I want to have those conversations within the cohorts because obviously those conversations are very different if you're getting 6. But you're still bumping up against things, right? And we can still come together. And I think I would like to use a thing called sort of collective agreements, which is like a tool that parents can use where it's like they can feel supported in that, we came together so that when little Johnny says, oh, you're the meanest mom in Seward because no one else has a bedtime, you can say, no, that's not true. We came together. I came together with the parents of the kids in your class and we talked about this and, we said that we were going to try to do this, right? And, do what's right for the kids and come to a consensus. The whole Icelandic prevention model is basically, it's like using the data to engage people and say, here's the environment our kids are living in, here's the reality, what are we going to do to change it, what are we going to do to make it better, right? And so, it's really about coming together. The next slide is a somewhat easy to read slide, but it's how easy or difficult it is to receive the following support from their parents. We have, if your thing's black and white, the top is very easy. The bottom, which would be really pale on your paper, would be very difficult. So receiving caring and warmth, and this one's actually separated out into boys, girls, and the total, okay? Discussion about your personal matters, advice on schoolwork, advice on other issues, assistance, or support with mental health issues. Mental health is one of the things that I want to key in on here, definitely later in the presentation, but it's definitely one of the concerns that we have, especially among our teenage girls, nationwide, and is mirrored in our data locally in Seward. Yeah.
Andrew, we've talked about this before, but it's really startling, like you just said, the girls versus boys.
Yep.
And I don't remember what assistance with other activities or projects, that category.
Yep.
Can you explain what that category might entail?
Well, it would basically be if that we're trying to tap in basically if parents are engaging with the interests or hobbies of the kids, right? So, it could be, a young woman that, maybe she's fixing up an old truck and how easy is it to get somebody out there that can give her assistance on a project or activity, whatever they're into. So it's kind of like are you engaged with your kids' activities and interests?
So it's kind of crazy that, like, for instance, it's 64% find it easy or very easy, and then Well, it's just the difference between, I don't know, the girls, it's just kind of disturbing on both, on all of those categories, the girls and how hard they have
Yeah,
in terms of accessing parents' support.
yeah, and and that could speak to, you know, the relationship with their parents. And so maybe one of the conversations we need to have community-wide is like, how do we form, you know, meaningful relationships with our daughters?
It could also speak to social media use.
Yeah.
Because
and
we know
that
the girls,
Yeah, and we know that our teenage girls are reporting poorer mental health, more alcohol use, more substance use, and nationwide that is true too. And what was the other one I was going to say? Oh, and more social media use. Yeah. This is parents, or excuse me, perception of parents that would not allow or discourage the following things. One thing to note here, I guess, only 84% skipped school. When we gave the survey last spring, you know, in the coalition, we had people representing all different sectors. Somebody said, hey, you know, I feel like the kids miss a lot of school. You know, can we put a question in there? So we did that. So, you know, roughly 15% of the kids think that their parents wouldn't discourage them from skipping school. So could be something that we.
by the way, that's a nationally and statewide, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it's identified as a major contributor to decrease in scores.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the global sort of trauma that was COVID and then from it, all the different ways school has started to look and the hybrid and online classes, a big push towards homeschool and kids coming back and forth and doing things like that. Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the things that we need to respond to in this survey is how do we support our public schools? And how do we, you know, help some of these numbers come up? So because we're going to get into the school numbers now. And, you know, the last thing that I would want is somebody to look at this data and decide finger pointing is the answer, right? Because we all know that, you know, student base allocation conversations and low attendance rates and like I said, kids going back and forth and they're homeschooled and they're online and they're doing this and doing that. You know, the school system needs support, and I think that, especially when we get a little later into some data about, you know, the kids' perceptions of school. Is it like, you know, for a nonprofit organization, from an outside organization with resources and time, and me being a person whose job it is to worry about this kind of thing, you know, I seek to support the school in very, you know, many creative ways, and, you know, I think we're going to have to get creative if we're going to change some of these numbers surrounding school. So we've got another split into females and males here. We have often or always bored with studies. It's not uncommon for boys to report high on that, 65. We have often or always feel bad at school, huge discrepancy there between our girls and boys. And then have friends at school that care about them. Again, girls a little bit on the low side. We'd probably like to all, I don't know how many of you guys have children, but we would probably all like our kids to have friends at school that care about them. We have sense of safety at school, 75%, 22% want to change schools, and 81, which is a pretty good number, I think, get along with their teachers.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't want to hold you up too much.
Go ahead.
That's like crazy data right there. I mean, what is it that the females feel that they're not? The guys are much more bored,
It's because
but
they're smart.
less feel bad.
Yep.
What's that here?
No, I was saying boys are smarter in school, that's why. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, that's like twice the number.
Yeah.
I know.
How do you guys how do you reconcile this?
Well,
Are there theories?
Which statistic are you?
Well, the one that the girls are
bored.
less bored and yet feel bad.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that because of social issues? Is that,
What do you guys have some
Oh,
insights?
no, just, I have a teenage girl, so
Yeah.
I get
Being
it.
a teenage girl is terrible.
That's what I was wondering, is how much of that is
social?
teenage, well, how much of that is teenage development and hormones, because let's be honest, teenagers are teenagers, and it doesn't,
Yeah, but these are girls.
well, they're teenage girls.
I
Well,
know, but why are the girls worse than the boys? I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
so the only thing I would say
They're
is that girls are mean. That's the first thing I learned when my girls got in high school versus my boys.
Oh, yeah,
Girls
to
are
each
mean.
other.
They're mean to each other.
vicious.
It's bad.
Yeah, and
So-
students treating each other unkindly, right? You know, always feel bad at school, or not feeling like they're supported, like some of that unkind behavior is happening in front of adults and there's no follow-up, you know, things like that. But I've talked to some kids, I mean, all those things are kind of what the kids are kind of honing in on when they talk about lack of sense of safety. You know, and in these days, you know, it seems like basically once I feel bad, I don't want to go in that room anymore. And then now there's been this thing where now I can take the class online or I can do this, and so there's a lot of kind of avoidance of that thing. One of the things that we've done, so I run I run a suicide prevention and resiliency building program at Seward High School called Sources of Strength. And one of the things that, and it's a peer-led adult facilitated program, so one of the things that the peer leaders, the kids at the school, did in reaction to this survey data was started a mentorship program at the school. And they did it under the slogan of, if we know each other better, we'll treat each other better. And so they've intentionally paired every kid in the school with another kid, usually upperclassmen with lower. And every month we get together and in our group we have, there's about 25 kids in the peer leader group and then about 8 community volunteer adults that come in to support them in whatever way. And we basically provide like intentional opportunities to like build connection with kids in the school. So we started, our big launch was like a newlywed style game where we partnered everyone up. We put their names on the wall that would say, you know, Randy Wells, your partner's name is Bob Barnwell. And then we posted the questions that we were going to ask. And it was like, know these things about Bob by next Friday because we're going to have a game show. And then we got everybody in the gym. We put on a huge game show and we gave the winners $100. And the kids had a blast. I mean, and it was awesome. We ran overtime and we were having a great time. And so we've been following that up then with every month we get together. We're trying to break down barriers and build connectedness among the school. And that's a peer-led initiative that's come out of this data. The next slide, talking about adults at the school. Do they care about me? Are they fair and kind? Is it safe to be around them? Would they notice if I was having a hard time and offer to help? And they believe that I can make the world a better place. Okay, some of these numbers are definitely lower than we probably want. I asked the kids specifically, what about this? You know, some of you said the adults in your school wouldn't notice or offer to help. And they said, yeah, we feel like a lack of support when people are being unkind, there's behaviors, things are being said within earshot, and there's no support, there's no follow-up, right? And that was kind of the conversation that the kids had with me then. So after giving this survey, I guess if you could elaborate on that. So after giving this survey, we saw a lot of the data, you know, wanted a little more information. So what I did was I pulled all the boys, but 2 separate meetings, pulled the boys into the theater and asked them, you know, there's a lot of head nodding, that sort of thing. Pulled the girls into the theater and, you know, asked them for some insights. I didn't show them specific data points. I just talked about trends or said, hey, you know, like a lot of you guys, you know, mentioned this, or, you know, very few of you guys mentioned this. And we had a conversation the girls really wanted to talk. We sat on the stage at the high school for over 90 minutes. And they talked and talked and talked and talked about the things that they want, you know, the things that they need to feel supported, or how can we move these numbers? How can we, you know, how can we move the needle on some of these things? And they had lots of ideas. And one of the things that came out of that is I have a youth advisory council now. So the Seward Prevention Coalition, we meet monthly. So our meeting is on Thursday. So I was just up today giving permission slips out. So we have 5 kids that are going to get bused to our meeting to be youth voice and representation in our, you know, at our Youth Prevention Coalition meeting. So that it's not a big, you know, room full of adults that are saying, you know, it'll be great for kids with no kids there. And so I think it's really cool that a lot of those kids have kind of stepped up in response to this data. They've appreciated, you know, the follow through too. Strongly agree, this is the peer environment at school. So 77 said I got friends that care about me. 38% of them think they should try their best. And then look at this number. So we have 28%, the students at my school are nice to each other. So it's like, well, 77% of you guys say you got friends and they care about you. And then almost the opposite number. So it's like, what's with that? You know, and they're saying, we're not nice to each other. Even my friends, even my friend group, we're not nice to each other. you know. And so it's an interesting thing. It's something that I have come across as a teacher and a coach and a substitute and all the different roles that I've played in the school system, for sure. And it kind of just harkens back to that conversation you had with your parents when you were 6. It's like, well, make sure everybody's having a good time. You know, are we laughing at Bob when we're making fun of his sweater? Are we laughing with Bob? So, but yeah, really interesting.
It's not
So
myth.
this is another piece of data that we look and say, man, we got to do something. You know, why are these kids not being kind to each other? A couple ideas that came from the youth. They're like, one, they thought that it was a lot of the underclassmen that were like carrying out some of the behaviors, and we have very, we had a proportionally low number of upperclassmen in the building to kind of set the tone or to like be a leader. And so it's like upperclassmen leadership, which is why we had the mentorship program come along. But it's also since Dr. Burns at the high school has shortened not shortened the day, but shortened the class periods so that kids are in the building more, right? Instead of having the block schedule where a senior might only have a class 2 days a week. He's trying to get kids in the building. He thinks, kids need to be in the building, and I think so too, especially when it comes to those upperclassmen, facilitating those relationships and building connection.
Andrew, before you move on,
Yeah.
I'm going to tread carefully here, but I've worked in different schools.
Yep.
And I've worked in different countries in different schools. And I have to say, my friends think we should try our best at school. I think we have a problem, and I think we've always had a problem, but it's getting worse here in this town on that one. And I think that has something to do with parents and communities and people valuing education.
Yeah.
How are you guys, for instance, in Asia, when we were the last place I taught, they'd kick their butts if they didn't get an A or a B in class, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just not that style, there's just that feeling here of that, like, hey, we really care about how you do in this school and you're trying your best. How are you dealing with parents on that level, or are you?
Well, like I said, I'm going to facilitate those parenting conversations, using this data. If that's something we key on, like the last thing I want is people to think that I have all the answers, or I'm going to tell you how to be a perfect parent, or, I don't. The idea is that we come together in our community and say, we want better for our kids. So, if we're seeing, maybe that statistic will strike some other people. I would hope so, right? I think that if you surveyed kids in the lower grades, you would probably get a different answer. You know what I mean? But I think, parental engagement with education, I think goes down the older your kid gets, sort of thing. So if there's a general apathy or a lack of support or like emphasis on education, I think it's a conversation worth having for sure. It's not something that I've specifically, honed in on in our prevention work, but in those parental conversations, I could see very easily a group of parents, at the middle school or high school, whatever, keying in on that and saying, hey, what are we going to do about this? And I think, there's a lot of parents that are tired of like trying to hold a hard line when they feel like nobody else is doing it, which is why I think that, those parental consensus community agreements can be powerful. So we move on to leisure here, and I'll move kind of quick. So this is like basically, so we have our 41 and 36. Those are kids that play a sport 4 times a week or more, okay? Proportionally about the same number. There's more boys in this class than there were girls. And then we have social media. So we have a quarter of the boys say they spend 3 hours a day or more on social media. 43% of the girls report that. And that doesn't include video games or checking this is just social media. We've got outside after 10, outside after midnight, and then 19% of teenagers participate in the arts. That number is actually probably inflated because at the time of the survey, it was like when Megan Miller was doing our theater production of Cinderella. And it was the first one for, 3 years or something. So, it was kind of a big deal. So had that not been going on, that number may have been, 0.
Honestly, I think that of all the numbers here,
Yeah?
that involvement in arts, for me, in my opinion,
Yep.
when I see an intact school anywhere I've ever been,
Yep.
they have high arts and music.
Yeah.
and that drives everything else.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, that's been the case here for quite a while now.
Yeah. Well, and with our cuts, you know, I mean, that's one of the things, Artists in the Schools program, the Seward Arts Council, the Coalition, we all do things to try to, like, you know, give our kids some at least exposure to arts and music in the community, but it does not replace, like, you know, having an art teacher or a music teacher. It's pretty tough, but it may be that the school system can never go back to what it was, right? So instead of having that conversation about all the things we used to have, it's like, well, how do we fill the gap? How do we surround our kids with these things that we know are protected? Sports in a club or a team outside of school. Jody, there's club volleyball, right?
Yes.
So club volleyball, club wrestling, club swimming basically are the three options there. You know, 38%. And these are high school kids. And I talked to them, and because, you know, we've spent lots of money doing different programs and putting on classes and stuff, and, you know, you put up this thing, you think it's going to be great, and then you can't beg a kid to show up. And it's because the high school kids do not want more things to do. They don't want something that's going to take up their schedule. They want a place to loiter. That's what they want. They want a movie theater, they want a shopping mall, they want a place to be that's free, that they can go. You know what I mean? And so, in response to that, I've spent a lot of my time resources trying to help the Boys and Girls Club at the Teen Rec Room get a little more, you know, good press, get a little more notoriety through an open house for them. We host Magic Club. I bring in local artists to do classes with their kids once a month. You know, things like that just sort of bolster those things because, you know, in response to the data, that's what we should be doing. So the next slide is physical activity. So we have 59% of these kids working out 60 minutes or more. That's almost double the kids that are on the sports team. So I'm like, what are you guys doing? They're like, we're going to the gym. That's what they want to do. But some of them said, but summer's coming up and we're going to lose our access and we don't have enough money. So I partnered with Parks and Rec to offer $10 gym memberships for Seward High kids for, you know, June and August. I think it was shut down by repairs or something. You know, as soon as we did that, I posted it on the social media and some kid DM'd me, private messaged me, hey, thanks for coming through for us. And that was awesome. We had like 5 kids that go down there that took advantage of the $10 gym membership and worked out. And it was great. Participate in other out-of-school activities, church and community groups, the arts, volunteering, and then other school activities that weren't listed before, like drama, debate, and forensics, Future Farmers of America. We have a
This is disturbing.
Yeah, we have a great Future Farmers of America program. I mean, they've won like national titles and stuff. You know, I think 2/3 of them are homeschooled, and I also think there's only like, what, 6 of them maybe? Something like that. But, you know, it's a kind of a,
Yes, that's.
you know, it's kind of like a,
Oh,
can we
but that.
give a kid's opportunity to find their passion without dumping resources into things that kids aren't interested in participating in? Right? I don't know.
So how does that doesn't match to me? The church is so low, and yet there are a lot of adults that seem to be fairly active.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot of homeschool families. These are all public school kids.
Oh, gotcha.
So, I mean, there's a lot of kids at some churches in town, right?
But
But they
they're homeschooled.
maybe don't go to public school. But as a person, as a member of a congregation, or a congregation that has a youth group or young life or whatever, you know, seeing these numbers, you can take this data and know this is a need. If you have a safe space where kids can just hang out and be with their friends, and you know now that this is what our kids are asking for, you know, you can take that. That's what I mean when I say, you know, understand the experience of the teens and then take this back to whatever corner of the community, wherever your circles are, and do it as you will. So this is I'm going to skip 2 slides and get to peer before we run out of time here. 1 peer slide. So this is Seward reports that almost all their friends do this. And you look at the numbers and you see they're really similar to the usage numbers of these substances, right? So that leads you to like 2 conclusions. 1, that all the kids using substances are hanging out together. Or 2, that all the kids using substances think everyone's doing it. And so, right, couldn't we make a big difference by debunking that myth, right? And just say, hey, listen, 88, was it 88, was it 22? Yeah, 88% of kids in Seward High School do not drink alcohol, right? And then you know, so then you've got, you know, you might debunk these 16% of these kids who think, or they're doing it because they think everyone's doing it. It's simply not true. We did the EU campaign, and you hear it on the Homer radio station. things like that, where they give like sort of that flip-flop statistic, where it's like, again, we're not looking for behavioral change here. We're not trying to scare kids and shock and awe them into like submission, and we're gonna scare them straight over to spring break. I mean, this is about like telling the truth and being honest with kids and providing them with healthy alternatives. So well-being, sleep. Okay, I think our sleep numbers are pretty darn good. Considering these are 15 to 16-year-old kids, we've got most of them going to bed at 10:30 or earlier and falling asleep by 11. That's pretty good. And I don't think we can move the needle on some of this stuff unless we address the start time of the school.
What time does it start?
7:45. 7:40, sorry, they moved it 5 minutes this year. Anchor School District, I think in January, just adopted a new start time, and it's like 9 o'clock for the high school. Based on the science, right? These kids need 10 hours of sleep. You're not gonna get them to go to bed any earlier, excuse me.
That's mostly Jim's schedule dictate that, right?
Yeah, because when you start late, you get out late, then you got a bus here, and you play your basketball game here and all that stuff. Well, it's like, what's more important, that our kids are getting sleep or that our basketball games are happening? And how can we, right? I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, but I think, on the policy side of things, that's a conversation that's worth having. So well-being overview slide here, huge discrepancy again between females and males. We have 29% of the girls reporting very good or good mental health. Right? That's 71% reporting poor mental health. National average right now is 60, which is horrible. The CDC has declared a state of emergency when it comes to teenage female mental health. It's not good. The boys think that they're pretty buff. Yeah, 82% of the boys flexing in front of the mirror. And, yeah, I'm pretty good here. Only 43% of the girls. Body image stuff, right? I wonder what these kids' definition of physical, like good physical and good mental health is, right? And isn't that a conversation we should have with our kids? Right now, the only option for a health class at our high school is online. From what I've heard, it's not a very good class. I heard that they do like a BMI thing, and that's about all they talk about when it comes to exercise and healthy bodies. And from somebody who's, 5'10", 220, I can tell you that BMI, I'm like grossly obese. And then we have often feel calm or relaxed, both relatively low numbers. I don't remember feeling that way when I was a kid. It's been a while. It doesn't matter what I felt, but this is what our kids are saying. This is their experience. Okay, we have physical and mental health here. I'm going to skip. I know we're running super slow, low on time. Again, sleep numbers, average sleep, most kids are getting 7 to 8. Okay? You can't ask for more. We got most of our kids going between 9:30 and 10:30, falling asleep by 11:30. For a 15, 16-year-old kid, that's pretty good, yeah.
Yet we only have 22% saying I woke up fresh and rested.
Right.
Wait. I don't understand why you're saying that.
Which one?
You're saying the kids get enough sleep?
No, I'm saying they go to bed at a reasonable hour for a 15 to 16-year-old kid.
Yeah.
I'm saying that our school starts at an unreasonably
gotcha.
early hour
Yeah.
because they're supposed to be getting like 10
Yeah,
hours
I
sleep,
get
but
you.
they're never going to get it. What are you going to do? Ask the 15-year-old kid to go to bed at 7 o'clock.
As a 30-year teacher of school, that's another huge one. Sleep. It's like crazy. It's so
Yep.
important. It's unbelievable.
Yep, and we have, when they wake up, we have wake up times, we have before 6:30, 34%. If you're riding the bus, and depending on where you live in the Rootway, it can be very early. And I think I got 3 more slides here. Answered yes to the following questions, just on mental health. Have you ever thought you needed help? Have you ever looked for help? Do you know the supports available? I think that 77 is actually a pretty successful number. I know that in our Sources of Strength program, we go, one of our major goals is to increase help seeking and early help seeking, right? To not think that these kids need to be in some sort of crisis to seek help or to need a hand or talk to a friend or connect with a mentor. We also spend a lot of time connecting kids to resources and bringing those resources into our meetings, into the school, and giving them real faces, like Amanda, the public health nurse, or clinicians from Seaview, or Gina Catley from the from the clinic, or, they come in and volunteer time with the kids, spend time with them, so it's a little, we take away those barriers, it's a little easier to seek access when because it's, kind of a scary thing for a lot of people. Last two slides are what we call the perceived stress scale, and they're one of those, the bar graph's kind of tough to read, but you can look at some serious disparities here. How frequently they felt in the past month, so we have upset because something unexpected happened, unable to control things, felt nervous and stressed. And then when we go to the next slide, and you can take some more time to look at these at your leisure, but if you go to the next slide, the very bottom, I felt difficulties were piling up so high that I could not overcome them. That question to me is extremely powerful because you're talking about hopelessness. And, the last thing we would ever want is a kid to feel so hopeless that they want to give up, right? And, from a resiliency building and suicide prevention standpoint, that is a really concerning statistic. And so, I don't know if that's more social emotional learning. I don't know if that's, taking breaks, facilitating conversations. How do we alleviate the stress of some of these teens?
Well,
And
it's all girls, there's only girls that answer.
Especially those girls, look at that. So again, a big disparity there. So, the U360 program, so what I do for work is disseminate these findings as broadly in the community as I possibly can, and facilitate conversations with people, like on the realities of this is the experience that our teams are having, and it's like, what are we going to do about it? And so, I do lots of things when it comes to enhancing access and removing barriers and putting on programs and classes and facilitating conversations. But really the model is so much bigger than what I can do, right? It's what everyone can do. If we can get everyone in our community to understand this and, recognize the issues and the challenges that we face, and then leverage the strengths and the people and the relationships and the places and the things that we have in our community that can help. The hope is that we would change the environment.
We have to fund schools. We have to fund schools.
Yeah, and I don't know, I would say we need to support schools. I don't know that, I don't know what the school funding thing, when it comes to student base allocation that hasn't been raised in however long, we have a number, we have like 138 kids in homeschool right now in Seward. So those are dollars that we are not counted. But our numbers are down. Is our population down? I don't know. And like I said, there's a big discrepancy since COVID. Now education can look 600 different ways. I don't know.
You said 138 homeschooled. How many are in schools?
The whole K to 12. I'm not sure of that number. We have 136 at the high school. We have 121 at the middle, and then we have K to 5 as well.
Do you know what K-5, how many there are?
I do not. But I can tell you-
126 in the high school?
136.
And wasn't that up to somewhere in the 300-400 at one point?
I don't know if it was that high. I don't know.
It was at least
It must have
250,
been a long
300.
time ago,
Yeah.
because they've been 3A, they would be going up to 4A if
Yeah,
it went that
I don't
high.
think it was quite that much.
think-
There was 44 in my class in '82.
44?
There was
Yeah,
about
okay,
that
so we're
many in my
graduating classes
class.
now, graduating class last year was like 36.
Okay,
doesn't-
maybe I'm
hasn't
thinking
changed.
elementary. Elementary is like 350 now.
Okay.
K-6.
I have twin 7-year-olds. They each have 17 kids in their class, so 17 and 17.
They didn't all graduate,
Yeah,
but walking.
I remember when I was teaching, a big class was like 55.
yeah,
But our elementary school classes never made it,
Yeah.
the whole way to high school.
yeah.
Because a lot of, sometimes you have to take families and people, whatever.
So this Icelandic model that we're looking at,
Yep.
what are are they similar laws in Iceland that are
Yeah.
laws and traditions that are similar to, in America and the way we have in Alaska, let's just say?
Right. Yeah, they do. Yeah, so a lot of what they did to change, like from the policy side of things, was a lot of the things that are already in place. They put things in place like there are in America when we talk about, like, you can't advertise, rules about
Well, that's what I'm getting at. When they developed this program, I was just trying to say, things were different
Yep.
And they've actually made them to be more like
Yep.
us in America, so to speak. I mean, if because, we're taking they're taking their program and we're trying to implement it here.
Yeah, well, it's not so much a program, we don't have to do what Iceland did.
Right.
The model is.
The model is,
use
yeah.
the data to identify the real issues, right, and change the environment by, coming together as a community and making the changes that you can make, using the strengths
Mhm.
and the unique qualities of your environment. Like, we can't replicate, it just wouldn't work, and nobody wants to be told what to do like that,
Right, yeah, I misspoke. I meant what
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. I
Okay.
misspoke, sorry about that. So
No,
I
no
understand that it's more, yeah. I was just trying to get at the situation that brought this program, if that's similar to where we're at. I mean, I know we're,
our numbers.
no, it's kind of a weird question. It kind of got overlapped into some other directions, so
Oh,
that's not what I was
okay.
getting at. I was getting at just the similarities in our laws when they developed this program.
Yep.
To theirs, ours to theirs, or theirs to ours at that
At the
time.
time, they didn't have the laws we did.
Okay,
They decided that, that these are issues that they needed to stop,
okay.
that they put a lot of those things in place.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, make no mistake, like, there's a lot of advertising that's targeted at our kids, right? Trying to produce user, like social media and things like that, giving kids messages all the time that they need to do this and need to do that, here's what you need to do to be pretty, here's what you need to do to be cool, whatever, right, things like that. So like, when we talk about, like internet safety, like I facilitated a couple conversations at the high school among parents about internet safety and things like that. That's one of the main things is like these companies that, like social media, for example. Every social media platform has a checkbox that says, I certify I'm 16 years old. So, how many kids do you know that have social media that are under the age of 16, right? So they check the box, they get on there, and then, for instance, Snapchat. So it's the most popular social media app for kids, for that demographic. They have a thing called a Snap, Snap Streak. So basically, Bob sends me a message. If I don't respond to him in a certain amount of time, we lose our streak, right? So Bob and I want to have this streak going. 700 days we've been texting each other and we haven't missed a streak. Well, think about it. If you're a kid and you go to bed with your cell phone, you don't want to miss your streak. Bob wakes up to, get out of bed for a minute in the middle of the night. He sends me a text. My phone lights up. Oh man, I gotta respond to Bob. I'm gonna lose my streak. I mean, it's like things like that. I mean, they're targeting kids and trying to produce, for lack of a better word, addicts to need social media. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Hasn't it been proven, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but social media, it's been tested and proven that it releases dopamines
Yep.
in your brain, and especially at that
Yeah.
age group, correct?
And at that age group, right, so all of a sudden, yeah, I mean, it's exactly like using a drug, or that release of dopamine, that acceptance. I mean, I'm putting my whole life on social media because I need you to affirm that what I'm doing is cool and okay, and, and then there's, and then we can get into the kind of like the reality versus, the manufactured stuff. But I know we're already over to it, but.
So can I just on that, just follow up on that?
Sure.
Because I've read a couple of articles recently about schools that have banned cell phones in school.
Yep.
Has that discussion, or do you guys ever talk about that in your organization, or with your kids, or how do they feel?
We don't, no, that's not kind of like our realm, but I can tell you that Nikiski High School did it. And right now, like the board policy is like it's classroom specific. Unless a principal wants to take that on and, make the whole building a no phone zone, which they did at Nikiski High. It's a classroom specific kind of a thing. Any other thoughts or questions?
Yeah, any questions?
Speed up on your job of fixing the world.
Yes. Yeah, I'm running out of.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And-
Very
And
useful.
our next, like I said, the coalition meets fourth Thursday of every month. which was Thanksgiving this month, so our meeting is in a couple of days on Thursday. And then I brought, if you guys want, I got like some little pamphlet deals that I made, and I got some copies in my car if you guys want to reach out. I can read these for you or whatever.
Well, thank you very much. Did we ever get YouTube working?
Yes, it is working.
Oh, good.
It did get on.
Good.
Oh, nice.
And could you please note that Councilmember Finch arrived?
Yes.
Finch.
He did?
Finch?
I mean, now whatever his name is. Yeah, Councilman. Sorry, I had just crossed off Finch on my list here for
That
the
sounds
next
good.
meeting. Okay, anything from administration that you want to add before we adjourn? Okay.
Andrew, thanks.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you very much.
Good work.
Okay, I'll adjourn this work session then, and we'll meet at 7.
See you guys in a couple weeks.
Oh.
Oh, okay.